Universal fans and Halloween Horror Nights fans alike, my name is the Crazy Englishman and welcome back to another episode of Halloween Horror World. Tonight we're going to be diving into the first part of the segment on the channel called Horrors Past, where we look into both Hollywood and Orlando's events, and we take a look and review some of the mazes, going through both concept, layout, and scare actors, of course. So today's segment is going to be on the Thing Assimilation. Now this review, because I have done it multiple times at my event, which is the Hollywood one, will be focusing primarily on the Hollywood one, but I do have some knowledge on the Orlando's layout, so we're going to be comparing and contrasting that later on. But for the time being, let's get straight into the review for the Thing Assimilation. Now, back in 2011, we were all wondering what kind of mazes would be at the event. Obviously, the film The Thing, the prequel to the 1982 John Carpenter film, one of my personal favorite films of all time, was getting released, and so I don't think a lot of people knew that it would be selected as a maze candidate. The thing is, especially on both events, but primarily Hollywood, it seems to focus on a lot more humanoid creatures rather than full-on monsters and deformed, like very creature-based. However, with Hollywood, we've had serial killers and very human characters. This is quite a leap for John Murdy and Chris Williams to work on, but with this concept, and they're able to have a good relationship with ADI, who worked on the film with the practical effects, two of my idols who run the effects studio, Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis. They were able to generously give the HHN crew their suit molds and actual costumes for to be used in the maze. And so this is a great start off to begin with, because Hollywood and Orlando have been fantastic in terms of set design and creature makeup and that, but now we're taking it to a whole new level. Now we're actually doing creature suits. So let's start with the facade of the maze. The facade of the maze, though simple, actually sets the tone for the rest of the maze. For those who don't know about the Thing takes place in Antarctic at a Norwegian research base. And so instantly it's an interesting locale to kind of set up the outside of the maze to kind of lead you in. And this is one of the reasons I enjoy the maze so much, was because it gives you a sense of immersion. You feel like you're in the Antarctic. They had fans blowing, so there's cold air breezing through. The sound effects of wind rushing through this kind of derelict Norwegian outpost that's just been torn apart by this creature. So one of my favorite layouts is the ice block room. It's actually the entrance to the rest of the maze, and it's just great. I mean, it's lovingly replicated from the film, from the beam coming down, the ice block, the infamous ice block from both the 1982 film and the new 2011 film, where the original Thing was frozen, and so that's there. As you're moving through, a lot of the sets become very familiar. There's there's kitchens, there's a rec room, and a lot of this feels, and the way they built them is they're not exactly huge. But this works to Hollywood's benefit, because Hollywood, unlike Orlando, who use a lot of soundstage, Hollywood, we have tent mazes, and so this kind of works with that kind of tight, restrictive construction, because you're inside a very, very tight corridored outpost. And so with the sets, you're walking around the kitchen, anything can jump out at you, because as you're moving through, it's very much like a real research base. There's tight corridors, kind of smaller rooms, for more, and it works. It's really immersive in the way that they just drop you in here, and so especially when you get to the rec room, it feels like it feels lived in. And then one of my other favorite scenes is the radio room, because you've got a three-pronged scare actor attack, but they've got, it looks like a radio room. Like, they've got the lights working and everything, and this is another shout out to Hollywood's construction guys, because they do a fantastic job replicating these environments for a live event. So lastly, let's jump into the scare actors themselves. The scare actors, this is a really interesting one to get into. I would love to be able to talk to some of the people, even the Orlando scare actors, what it was like to work with the costume and that. But from my personal observations, they seem to be able to move well enough in the outfits to be able to scare really well. Let's talk about the original Thing outfit. If you've seen the film, you know it's a very, and for those who don't know, it's a very mantis-like. It's got mantis arms, but almost like a predator mouth, where it has the four prongs, and it's very insect-like. And in the ice block room, it's actually over your heads, and so it's a great scare and gag when you're walking by and this thing just jumps out of you. Moving on, you've got the Griggs thing. The Griggs thing is split down the middle, so it's got the rib cage out like teeth, and it's this horrible, deformed, ripped apart kind of cast of a man, and the thing's just ripped through this guy, and it's a great gag because he stands in the corner and you're not sure if he's a statue or not, just the way the suit looks, and he jumps out at you, and I've seen it many times. It works really well. You've got the autopsy room with the original Thing laid out on the table, while slowly assimilating and digesting one of the Norwegian crew members, who is actually played by a live actor. So he's sitting in there and either looking at you, which is kind of discerning in itself. I mean, he doesn't really, or her doesn't have to really do much in terms of really manipulating the audience, like getting their fears up, because he's just dead staring you. But sometimes his arm will come out and try to grab you, and it works really well. The other thing is Juliet. Juliet was a fantastic suit in itself. It very much different from the Griggs thing, but with a similar kind of similar feel, but very different design. It's the suit actually had the hole in the middle of the body, so the teeth are coming out. But unlike the Griggs thing, most of the other body is manipulated, so the arm is kind of a blade. And the Juliet thing's human head has been pushed kind of further out in the suit, and it gives this warped, deformed kind of appearance, and it works really well. The last three things are the split-headed thing, where it's a guy, but his head is kind of forming with another one, and it's just this weird, deformed, twisted look that someone's melded with another face, and it's fantastic. And the last two things are giant puppets of the Sonda thing, and they're giant claws coming out, reaching out for you. It's a huge puppet. For Hollywood fans, they reused it for the La Llorona giant puppet back in 2012, and so it's a really effective looking giant puppet. Very creepy. The first one had Sonda's face on it, The last one actually has when the face has been torn off and there's tentacles moving, so it works really well in leading the audience through to the exit, trying to grab at them. We can't go further without talking about the fantastic human actors, the actors, scare actors playing humans. There was a couple of great gags in there where one guy would come out with the pickaxe. Great little gag, very simple but very effective. And one guy comes out with a strobe effect with a spinning blade saw, where he shakes it in front of the audience. So it works really well. Lastly, you've got the guy cutting his neck in the radio room, accompanied, and I mentioned before, a three-pronged attack. This guy's cutting his throat, so it's a blood gag squirting out the audience. And then a guy comes out with an armed thing, like it's the arm, but it's like a millipede, and he's holding it, and he's shaking it in front of the audience, and then he goes back. And then there's a little, to push the audience into another room, there's another thing that's being puppeteered, so it's coming out through a blacking curtain, and it works really well. So, talking about some of the things I wasn't a fan of in the maze, I mean, no maze is really perfect. I mean, you can nitpick. I mean, I love the maze, fantastic, but there's only really one thing I could nitpick, and that's in some of the scenes it kind of feels slow, like there isn't too many scare actors, like it's kind of empty. There's a kennel that has ripped apart cages, and I was half expecting a dog Thing puppet to come out, but that didn't happen. So it's kind of like what I said earlier in another video about El Kukui, where there was just that long corridor, and even though there was more stuff in this, I just wish there was something kind of, maybe a hole in the wall where a puppet could come out, you know, something to give it more substance. Other than that, that was a very enjoyable maze, and it's still my top favorite maze of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood. But I did say I would compare and contrast. Now, not much is different for the Orlando event, apart from the size and scale of some of the sets, with added scenes, but like they had a pantry section, which the double-headed thing attacks the audience, but the big significant changes that they had was they actually had the spacecraft at the end, so you're actually walking in the spacecraft. Not much, though, is known about what happens then. There's no videos, unfortunately, of that specific attraction. So, to end this review, I will have to say that the Thing Assimilation 2011 was brilliant, well conceived, a daring concept, close on par with Insidious, if not more so because of its creature idea. And a very enjoyable attraction that, if it made a return later down the line, maybe based on the original this time, kind of similar to what the 2007 Carnival Carnage Orlando event had, I would be very happy. I would love to see a return of the Thing in some form. So to give this maze, I would give it 4 out of 5. Not perfect. I mean, there's always going to be some kind of glaring, well, for me anyway, there were some things I can't ignore, even I can't fanboy about, because quite honestly, nothing's perfect. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed this maze, loved the concept, loved the idea, loved the experience of being immersed in this desolate Antarctic environment. And yeah, I will actually, at the end of this video, put a link to Sharp Productions, who has a video of the maze walkthrough, so you can see for yourself if you missed that. So yeah, I'm actually curious to see for you guys who live in Orlando or live near Orlando, who have been to the 2011 Orlando Thing maze. I'd love to hear your thoughts on on the Thing maze. So yeah, leave a comment below if you like this video. Please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. More reviews are coming. More informative Halloween Horror Nights videos are on the way, and I hope you enjoyed it. Crazy Englishman signing out.